Today I have a question for you, and that is, who is the voice of reason in your society? Is it a politician? Is it somebody from a church? Or is it even a bunch of comedians? Has your society now reached the level where the only people who talk sense in your society are the comedians? Um, Now, some time ago, I was a guest at somebody's house for a few days, and the Sunday morning, I woke up hoping that it would just be a lazy Sunday morning, but unfortunately, it turned out differently, because unbeknownst to me, there was a church service at this particular house, and I was stuck attending it. And the pastor arrived there, and he started off by telling us how knowledgeable he is, and how well read he is, and that he's busy with his doctor's thesis on something, and also that he's well traveled. He explained to us that he visited France quite recently at that stage, and that he went to all of the famous landmarks in Paris. Now, the only one whose name he could remember was the Eiffel Tower. The Arc de Triomphe, he called that arch thing, and the Louvre he called that famous museum. But even though he couldn't really remember the names of some of the landmarks, he was adamant. He was adamant that they are all Satanistic symbols. Then, during the service, it became clear he's quite connected with the evangelicals in America, and that he's a big Trump supporter. Now, during the church service, he started going on a rant against the Dems. Now, according to this pastor, in the one state there's an anti-abortion law that the Dems have found a loophole against. And what they are doing is that when they've realized when they kill the baby inside the womb of the mother, then it's a contravention of this particular anti-abortion law. And then if they kill the baby after it has left the womb, then it's murder. So what the Dems are doing is, when the baby is half in and half out, they cut off the head of the baby. This is now the loophole according to this pastor. And, I was just sitting there listening to the sermon, shaking my head and realizing the sad reality of my society is that in my society, the voice of reason is church leaders like this pastor. And that's very sad, because church leaders, they don't use reason and logic. It's not part of their makeup. They rely on emotion to convince people to believe in something like the supernatural, because the supernatural, a belief in that is just wrong, it's illogical, it's against all reason. So that is why they must rely on emotional thinking, on emotion. They don't rely on logic and reason. So it's problematic when your voice of reason is somebody that doesn't use reason, that only uses emotion. That is why I believe that the philosopher is the best person to have as your voice of reason, because a philosopher doesn't have an agenda. A philosopher's only agenda is to seek the truth, and they do that through reason and logic. The worst thing that you can show to a philosopher is that his argument is invalid. It's not logical. It's illogical and irrational. That is the worst thing for a philosopher. And that is why I believe that it's a big mistake that all over the world philosophers' influence has dwindled to almost being zero. And that's perhaps why we have the state of, that's maybe why we have the situation all over the world we found ourselves in. It's not a logical and rational society that we live in. That's very sad.